A woman pulls you close, her hands urgent, moving fast, like she can't wait another second. She's skipping everything, pushing straight toward penetration. And you think to yourself, this is what she wants, right? This is her being turned on, being into it. But here's what most men don't realize. What's happening in that moment is almost never what it appears to be. In fact, that urgency, that rush, that seemingly impatient desire, it's often masking something completely different. Something that, once you understand it, will change everything about how you approach intimacy, how you read her body, and how deeply she'll actually want you. Because the truth is, when a woman acts like she wants to skip straight to sex, she's rarely telling you what she truly needs. She's telling you something else entirely. Let's be clear from the start. Yes, there are moments when a woman genuinely craves immediate penetration. Those moments exist. They're real, but they're also rare. They happen in very specific contexts. When she's already deeply aroused, when the emotional connection is at its peak, when her body has been building anticipation for hours, or even days. Those are spontaneous exceptions, bursts of raw desire that come from a place of complete readiness. But here's the critical part. Those moments are not the norm. They're not what's happening most of the time when she seems to rush things. And if you've been assuming they are, you've been misreading the signals entirely. After decades of research into sexual medicine, after countless clinical sessions with couples, after hundreds of private conversations where women finally felt safe enough to tell the truth, a clear pattern has emerged. When a woman skips foreplay, when she moves quickly toward penetration, when she acts like the build-up doesn't matter, it's almost always because something else is driving that behavior. Something deeper, something she might not even be fully aware of herself. And understanding what that something is will unlock a level of intimacy and desire you've probably never experienced before. So what's really going on when she rushes? Let's start with the most uncomfortable truth. One that many men don't want to hear, but desperately need to understand. In many cases, when a woman behaves like she just wants to get it over with, it's because she doesn't actually enjoy sex. At least not the way it's been happening, not the way it's unfolding in her experience. This is a reality that women have shared in therapy rooms, in anonymous surveys, in late-night conversations with trusted friends. They describe sex as something they endure rather than savor, something they complete rather than lose themselves in. And when that's the case, why would she want it to last longer? Why would she want more of something that doesn't feel good? This shows up in long-term relationships more often than anyone wants to admit. It's what women sometimes call keeping the peace. It's duty sex. She's not having sex because her body is craving it, because she's turned on, because she can't keep her hands off you. She's having sex because she feels obligated, because she doesn't want to deal with the tension that comes from saying no, because she's worried about how you'll react, how you'll feel, what it might mean for the relationship if she keeps declining. So she goes through with it. And the fastest way to get through something you're not enjoying is to skip everything that prolongs it. No warm-up, no slow building. Just get to the part that signals the end is near. You can actually identify this pattern by paying attention to what happens after sex. Does she glow with warmth and affection? Does she curl up next to you, relaxed and satisfied? Or does she immediately create distance? Does she pull away, become quiet, seem emotionally checked out? Does she head straight to the bathroom or reach for her phone? Anything to shift her attention away from what just happened. If she rarely initiates intimacy, if you're always the one pursuing it, if every sexual encounter feels like something you have to make happen, rather than something that emerges naturally between you, then you're probably looking at duty sex. And in those situations, her rushing isn't desire. It's survival mode. But duty sex isn't the only reason women skip foreplay. There's another massive factor at play, one that's rooted in experience rather than obligation. Many women rush toward penetration because foreplay has been consistently unpleasant for them. Think about that for a moment. If every time someone touched you in a certain way, it felt uncomfortable, awkward, or even painful, would you want more of it? Of course not. You'd start avoiding it. You'd find ways to bypass it. You'd redirect towards something that at least didn't make you tense up. This is what happens to countless women whose partners never learned how to touch them properly. And this isn't about blame. Most men are never actually taught how female arousal works. They're not educated about the sensitivity of her body, the importance of pressure and pace, the way her responses shift depending on where she is in her cycle and her headspace. Instead, they learn from sources that are wildly unreliable. Pornography that prioritizes visual performance over actual pleasure. Advice from friends who are just as clueless. Trial and error that creates more confusion than clarity. So they end up touching in ways that feel too aggressive, too mechanical, too goal-oriented. They might give oral sex with intensity that borders on painful, pressing too hard, moving too fast, treating her body like it needs to be conquered, rather than explored. Fingers that move like pistons, instead of communicating with her responses. Techniques that are more about checking a box, making her orgasm because that's the objective, rather than creating an experience she actually enjoys. And when that's been her reality, when foreplay has consistently felt like something to endure rather than anticipate, she starts dreading it. Her body tenses before it even begins. She subconsciously looks for ways to avoid it. So when she pushes for penetration right away, it's not because she doesn't want build-up. It's because the build-up she's experienced hasn't been good. It's been uncomfortable or disappointing or just boring. She's not rejecting intimacy with you. She's protecting herself from what she's learned to associate with those pre-penetration moments. This can happen even in relationships where there's genuine love and effort. Sometimes it's the result of past trauma that's created lasting tension. Sometimes it's just a lack of skill and understanding on both sides. You'll recognize this pattern if she consistently redirects your attempts to touch her. If she seems impatient when you try to slow things down. If she'd rather just move straight to intercourse than let you explore her body. And here's where it gets tricky for most men. When they notice this pattern, they interpret it as rejection. They think she's not attracted to them, that she doesn't want their touch, that they're doing something fundamentally wrong. So they pull back entirely. They stop trying. They assume she just has a lower sex drive or isn't that interested. But that's not what's happening. The solution isn't to retreat. It's to improve. It's to learn how to touch her in ways that actually feel good. It's to slow down, to pay attention to her reactions, to ask questions, and build trust in those moments again. Because when a woman experiences touch that genuinely feels pleasurable, when she's with someone who understands her body's language, everything changes. Then there's a third reason women rush into penetration. One that's perhaps the most widespread and the least recognized. Many women genuinely believe that penetration is sex, that everything else is just optional extras. They've never experienced anything different, so they don't know what they're missing. From their very first sexual encounters, The pattern was always the same. Little to no build-up, minimal warm-up, straight to intercourse. Nobody ever taught them that their bodies work differently than men's bodies. Nobody explained that female arousal isn't instant, that it requires time and attention and gradual escalation. So they go through life thinking that what they've been experiencing is just how sex is supposed to be. The biological reality is completely different. When a woman engages in penetration immediately, before her body has had time to respond, several critical things haven't happened yet. Her natural lubrication hasn't fully developed. The tissues inside her pelvis haven't engorged with blood. The nerve endings that create pleasurable sensations haven't been activated. Her entire arousal system is still in neutral. She might still feel something during penetration, but it's a fraction of what she's actually capable of experiencing. The depth of sensation is muted. The intensity is diminished. The possibility of orgasm becomes remote. And because she's never known anything different, because this has been her entire sexual history, she might assume that's just how her body works. She might think she's one of those women who doesn't really enjoy sex that much, who can take it or leave it, who doesn't have a high sex drive. She might even believe there's something wrong with her, that she's less sexual than other women, that she's just not built for intense pleasure. But none of that is true. Her body is perfectly capable of extraordinary sensations. She's just never been given the conditions that allow those sensations to emerge. This misunderstanding creates a heartbreaking cycle. She doesn't experience much pleasure during sex, so she doesn't crave it. She doesn't crave it, so she's not particularly motivated to engage in it. When she does engage, it's quick and unremarkable, which reinforces her belief that sex just isn't that great. And the pattern continues, year after year, relationship after relationship, with her never discovering what her body can actually do when it's properly awakened. But there's yet another layer to this, something that's more about social conditioning than personal experience. Many women have learned, consciously or unconsciously, that they're supposed to follow a script, that men expect sex to move quickly toward penetration, that taking too much time makes them seem high maintenance or difficult or not sexy enough. They've absorbed messages from culture, from media, from previous partners, that enthusiastic, uncomplicated sex means getting to the main event without delay. So they perform that role. They act like they're totally fine, skipping all the build-up, like they're just as eager as he is to get right to it. But internally, they're not eager at all. Internally, they're wondering why sex doesn't feel as good as it's supposed to. Internally, they're wishing someone would slow down and really pay attention to them. But they don't say that out loud because they've learned not to, because they don't want to seem demanding, because they're afraid of being seen as complicated or boring or not worth the effort. So they keep playing the part, keep moving quickly, keep acting like foreplay is unnecessary, all while never experiencing the kind of pleasure their bodies are actually designed for. When these women finally encounter someone who refuses to follow that rushed script, someone who insists on taking time, who touches them with patience and attention, who creates an environment where their arousal can actually build, they're often stunned by the difference. They discover sensations they didn't know existed. They realize their bodies are capable of responses they'd never experienced before. The script they'd been following wasn't revealing their true sexuality. It was hiding it. Now, are there genuinely moments when a woman wants immediate penetration because she's already intensely aroused? Absolutely. These moments do exist. They happen when she's been thinking about you all day, When the tension has been building through texts or glances or touches over hours. When her body is already primed and ready before clothes even come off. When the emotional connection is so strong that her physical response follows instantly. Those are real. Those are powerful. Those are the exceptions that prove the rule. But even in those moments, even when she's already aroused, her body still benefits from some engagement, some acknowledgement of what's building between you, some transitional touch that honors the intensity of what's about to happen. The problem is that many men have taken those exceptional moments and assumed they represent what women want all the time. They've generalized from the outliers and missed the pattern. They've convinced themselves that skipping foreplay is what makes things passionate and spontaneous, when in reality, it's what's been draining the passion from their sex lives all along. Because here's what actually happens when you consistently skip the build-up. When you treat penetration as the starting point rather than the destination that everything else has been leading toward, her body never fully engages. Her arousal stays surface level, her pleasure remains limited, and over time, her desire starts to fade. She's not losing interest in sex because she's getting older, or because the relationship has lost its spark, or because she just has a naturally low drive. She's losing interest because sex hasn't been genuinely pleasurable for her. And why would anyone crave something that doesn't feel good? This is where so many relationships end up stuck. He wants more sex. She seems less and less interested. He feels rejected and frustrated. She feels pressured and disconnected. And neither of them realizes that the entire dynamic could shift if they change their approach to those first crucial minutes of intimacy. What would happen if instead of rushing, you slowed down? What would happen if you paid attention to her responses, to the subtle ways her body communicates what feels good? What would happen if you made her pleasure the priority, not as a chore or an obligation, but as something you genuinely enjoyed creating? The answer is that everything would change. Her body would start responding differently. Her desire would grow instead of shrinking. The intimacy between you would deepen, and you'd find yourself with a partner who actively wants you, who initiates, who meets you with enthusiasm instead of obligation. If you're with a woman who consistently rushes or avoids the build-up before penetration, don't interpret it as rejection. Don't assume it means she's not attracted to you, or that she's just not that sexual. Instead, get curious. Ask gentle questions. Create space for honest conversation. Say something like, "Do you not enjoy when I touch you before?" Or, "Would you be willing to show me what feels good for you?" Sometimes, she won't know how to answer because nobody's ever asked her before. Nobody's ever made her pleasure the central focus. Nobody's ever given her permission to explore what she actually likes. That's where your role becomes crucial. You're not just a passive participant waiting to see what she wants. You're someone who can guide her into comfort, who can show her what genuine arousal feels like, who can rewire her entire association with intimacy. Many women haven't had positive sexual education. Many haven't had partners who were patient or skilled or attentive. Many have no idea what their bodies are actually capable of experiencing. When you create an environment of safety and slowness, when you touch her in ways that are genuinely attuned to her responses, her body begins to trust you. That's when the rushing stops. That's when she relaxes into the experience, instead of trying to speed through it. That's when her desire transforms from something she forces herself to feel into something that emerges naturally and powerfully. This isn't just about technique, though technique matters immensely. This is about understanding that female sexuality works fundamentally differently than male sexuality. It's about recognizing that what looks like desire might actually be avoidance. It's about having the empathy to see beneath the surface behaviors to what's really driving them. It's about being willing to lead in intimacy, not by being dominant or controlling, but by being patient and perceptive and genuinely invested in her experience. When you become that kind of partner, when you stop assuming and start understanding, when you prioritize her arousal as much as your own, everything shifts. She stops performing and starts responding. She stops enduring and starts craving. She stops seeing sex as something to get through and starts experiencing it as something to lose herself in. And you, instead of constantly feeling like you're chasing her for intimacy, instead of wondering why she's never really that interested, you find yourself with someone who actively desires you, someone who initiates, someone who brings her full enthusiasm and presence to your intimate moments together. The woman who rushes toward penetration isn't showing you what she truly wants. She's showing you what she's learned to accept. She's showing you the pattern she's been conditioned into. She's showing you the script she thinks she's supposed to follow. Your job isn't to accept that script as reality. Your job is to help her discover what exists beyond it, what her body is capable of, when it's given the time and attention it actually needs. That's where real intimacy lives. That's where genuine desire emerges. That's where the kind of sexual connection you've been wanting all along finally becomes possible.